This is one of the nation's most notorious crimes, and now Ashton Kutcher is one of more than 100 witnesses set to testify in the now infamous murder trial.
Ashton Kutcher has just been found guilty of Ashley Elleren's crime, and his Hollywood career is over forever. The man everyone knew as a charming actor is now at the center of a crime that has haunted investigators for decades. For years, people thought the case was closed, that the real guilty had been caught. How did one of Hollywood's biggest stars get pulled into a case this horrifying? Tune in, because the truth is so horrible it caused Hollywood to shut down the studios for the rest of the year. The brutal crime that shook Hollywood. The brutal crime of Ashley Elleren rocked Los Angeles back in early 2001. A young, beautiful, aspiring fashion designer, her life was snuffed out in the most horrifying way. Stabbed over 40 times in her own home, it was a crime so vicious that even experienced investigators were shaken. No signs of forced entry, no struggle. Someone she trusted had let themselves in. For years, people believed the criminal Michael Gargiulo was the one responsible, and his conviction seemed to confirm that. But if that was true, then why are new details about Ashton Kutcher making their way to the surface? Before we dive deeper, one thing is certain. The truth behind Ashley Elleren's crime is far more twisted than anyone ever suspected, and what's coming next will leave you speechless. The night of Ashley's crime, she was supposed to go on a date, not just with anyone, but with a rising Hollywood star, Ashton Kutcher. At the time, he was fresh into his acting career, charming millions on television while living a seemingly carefree life. But when he showed up at Ashley's house and got no answer, things got strange. According to him, he looked through a window, saw what he assumed were wine stains, and left. He didn't call the police, he didn't knock harder, he just walked away. That part of the story always felt a little too convenient. How could anyone see red stains through a window and not feel something was wrong? Was it really ignorance, or was he buying himself time? Authorities accepted his story for years, and because there was already a convicted criminal on record, nobody looked at Ashton again. That is, until new evidence changed everything. The most shocking part? A forensic review of Ashley's case uncovered inconsistencies in the timeline. Calls were made from her phone hours after she was believed to be dead. Blood evidence suggested the attack didn't happen when people originally thought. And there was one more thing. A witness who saw a familiar car outside her house long after Ashton claimed to have left. For years, Gargiulo was seen as the only guilty party, but the pieces aren't adding up anymore. Could it be that the wrong man was blamed, while the real guilty walked free? Or worse, could there have been more than one person involved? Hollywood has covered up scandals before, but this might be the biggest of them all. Investigators have now turned their full attention to Ashton, questioning his alibi, re-examining his relationship with Ashley, and digging deeper into details that were overlooked. There's a reason people say money and fame can buy freedom, but can they keep the truth buried forever? If these accusations turn out to be true, his career isn't just over, his entire legacy is erased. Think about it. Hollywood has a long history of powerful people getting away with horrifying crimes. Scandals covered up, evidence ignored, careers protected at the expense of justice. Could this be one of those cases? Did a beloved actor use his influence to keep a horrific truth from coming to light? And more importantly, if he really is guilty, how many people helped him get away with it? Ashley's family has spent over 20 years looking for closure, believing they finally got it when Gargiulo was sentenced. Imagine their horror when the truth started slipping through the cracks. Now, it's not just about justice, it's about exposing an entire system that might have let the real criminal walk free. Hollywood's golden boy may not be who he claims to be, and if the allegations stick, there's no coming back from this. No more sitcoms, no more starring roles, no more carefully crafted public image. Just one name added to the long list of disgraced stars whose true nature was hidden for far too long. If even a shred of this is real, it's not just a scandal, it's one of the biggest betrayals in entertainment history. New evidence is changing everything about that night, and the truth might not be what people always believed. The last call before everything fell apart. The case of Ashley Elleren's crime was never as simple as it seemed. She had plans that night, a date that was supposed to be just another evening out. But instead of romance, the night ended in horror. The last person she spoke to? Ashton Kutcher? The last person expected to see her? Again, Ashton Kutcher. And yet her body was found in a pool of blood the next morning, a brutal crime with no one around to stop it. Let's not pretend this was some random act of violence with no threads to pull. The facts don't sit right. Ashton was meant to pick Ashley up, and he was the last known person to call her. Coincidence? Maybe. But when a man shows up at the crime scene, touches the doorknob, and later admits he freaked out because his fingerprints were left behind, that's not just bad luck. That's the kind of detail that makes people start asking questions. And questions came. A lot of them. Ashton himself confirmed that at exactly 24 minutes past 8 that night, he spoke to Ashley, letting her know he was going to be late. She reportedly told him she was fine, had just gotten out of the shower, and needed to dry her hair. Hours later, at 45 minutes past 10, Ashton claims he arrived at her house. Lights were on. The door was locked. No answer when he knocked. What does he do? Leaves, but not before peeking through the window. That's when things get strange. He swears he saw what looked like red wine spilled on the floor. Red wine? Or something much worse? The next morning, Ashley's roommate walked into the crime scene, a scene Ashton had, unknowingly or not, already glimpsed. And yet he had walked away. Public opinion turned fast. Ashton gave his version, fully cooperating with the police. Maybe that helped clear him from being an official suspect, but it didn't silence the growing unease. The man mistook blood for wine? That's hard to swallow. And if he really thought she had gone out with friends, why leave without a second thought? Then came the real bombshell, a new testimony. A former apartment manager and aspiring actor stepped forward with something nobody expected. He claimed to have been involved with Ashley at the time, and not just that, he was in her apartment that night, and he overheard the phone call with Ashton. According to him, the conversation wasn't casual. It was tense, possibly even an argument. This doesn't match the smooth, polite version Ashton provided. If true, it shatters his timeline. And then another twist. A neighbor, an ear witness to what might have been the most crucial moment of the case. They reported hearing Ashley scream, not once, twice. And the time? 8:30, right around when she was on the phone with Ashton. If that's true, what does it mean? If her screams were connected to their call, was it just a bad argument? Or something far worse? The resurfaced accusations and shocking new claims have reopened a case that refuses to fade away. Each new detail either brings us closer to understanding the truth or adds another layer of confusion, making it harder to separate fact from fiction. The tragic death of Ashley Aaron remains a haunting story, wrapped in uncertainty and suspicion. Instead of getting justice, the world got disturbing images, snapped in her final moments, paraded across news outlets like some kind of spectacle. And it wouldn't be the first time a high-profile death was exploited this way. One tragic case left people with more questions than answers, and another shows how power can shape history in ways no one imagined. A love story that was never real. Princess Diana, once celebrated as the people's princess, entered the world stage through a fairy tale wedding to Prince Charles, but the truth behind their marriage was anything but magical. From the beginning, there was another woman lurking in the shadows, casting doubt over the entire union. Diana, despite sensing trouble, saw the proposal as an escape from her troubled family, but what she stepped into was a cold and unwelcoming royal life. The infidelity, the distance, and the rigid rules of the monarchy turned her dream into a nightmare. Then just when she started to fight back, her life was cut short in a car crash that still raises more questions than answers. Now, decades later, the cracks in the royal family's carefully crafted image are beginning to widen. Her own son has come forward with revelations that could shake the institution to its core. But why now? What does he stand to gain or lose by finally speaking out? Diana's story didn't start with her royal title, and it certainly didn't end with that fateful night in 1997. To understand her fate, we need to go back to where it all began. Born on the 1st of July, 1961, Diana Frances Spencer came from a family with deep ties to British aristocracy. Her father, Edward John Spencer, became Earl Spencer, cementing their status among the elite. Even her birthplace, Park House on Queen Elizabeth's Sandringham estate, was a sign of just how closely tied her family was to the royal circle. The same estate where the royal family spent Christmases now rents out cottages for several $100s a night to those looking to experience a slice of history. But what went on behind closed doors in Diana's childhood home was far from the glamour seen in public. Diana was the youngest daughter in the Spencer household, with two older sisters, Jane and Sarah, and a younger brother, Charles. She had another brother, John, but he never made it past infancy, a loss that deeply affected her mother. This tragedy loomed over Diana's birth as her parents desperately wanted a male heir, making her arrival a disappointment in their eyes. It took them a full week to settle on her name, a decision that should have been joyful, but instead felt like an afterthought. Within the family, she was called Douche for her regal attitude, but despite this nickname, Diana's early years were far from royal. From the very beginning, there was pressure on her mother to produce a son, so much so that she was sent to medical specialists to determine why she wasn't having male children. Imagine the humiliation of being blamed for something beyond your control. Years later, Diana's brother would recall how this obsession with having a male heir tore their parents apart, leading to one of the most talked about divorces in British high society. Diana was only 7 when her parents split, an event that deeply scarred her and shaped how she viewed relationships. After the divorce, Diana initially stayed with her mother in London, but things took a drastic turn during a holiday visit to her father's home. Her mother planned to take her back, but Lord Spencer, backed by his powerful connections, refused to let her go. What followed was a bitter custody battle, with Diana ultimately remaining with her father. It was a crushing moment that made Diana feel abandoned, a wound that never truly healed. Then, in 1976, her father remarried, bringing in a stepmother, Rain Spencer, who Diana despised so much that she once pushed her down the stairs. This wasn't the kind of princess training one might expect, but it certainly shaped her strong-willed personality. Her education was equally complicated. Initially homeschooled, she later attended several boarding schools, including Riddlesworth Hall and West Heath Girls' School. While she excelled in sports and community service, academics were not her strong suit. She failed her exams not once but twice, a struggle that was likely made worse by the emotional turmoil in her personal life. But none of that mattered when she entered the royal family's orbit. Intelligence, after all, was never a requirement for a royal bride. Obedience was. When Diana and Charles met, it wasn't exactly love at first sight. In fact, he had previously dated her older sister Sarah. But Diana fit the mold of what was expected. Young, aristocratic, and most importantly, naive enough to be molded into the perfect princess. The engagement happened at lightning speed, and Diana barely had time to grasp what she was getting into before she was thrust onto the world stage. As the wedding approached, she confided in friends about her doubts, even expressing concerns about Charles's ongoing relationship with Camilla. But once she was in, there was no way out. The wedding in 1981 was watched by millions, a global spectacle that painted the image of a perfect royal romance. But the cracks in their marriage were already showing. The moment Diana said "I do," she realized she had entered a life of control, coldness, and isolation. The royal family had strict rules, and there was little room for individuality. She was expected to smile, wave, and keep quiet, even as her husband's affair continued right under her nose. Someone who refused to follow the rules of a powerful family faced consequences that were far more dangerous than anyone expected. The princess who refused to stay silent. As the years passed, Diana stopped playing by the rules. She became outspoken, forging her own identity beyond just being Charles's wife. She turned her pain into purpose, championing causes that the royal family often ignored, like AIDS awareness and the fight against landmines. But with every step she took toward independence, she made powerful enemies. The more she connected with the public, the more of a threat she became to the monarchy. By the early 90s, the marriage was beyond repair. The public watched as Diana and Charles's war played out in headlines and television interviews. When Diana famously said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," the world knew she was done being silent. The palace tried to control the narrative, but Diana was no longer following their script. Then came the crash. August 31st, 1997. A tunnel in Paris. A car chased by paparazzi. And just like that, the woman who had defied the crown was gone. The official story is that it was a tragic accident, but the circumstances surrounding her death have fueled endless speculation. Why was her driver speeding that night? Why were emergency services so slow to respond? And why, after all these years, do so many still believe there's more to the story? Diana may not have been the best student, but when it came to helping people, she outshined everyone. Her school, West Heath, saw her kindness and gave her an award for her community work. While books didn't interest her much, she had other talents. She could play the piano beautifully and had a deep love for dance and swimming. By the time she was 16, her brother Charles recalled that she was still a very shy girl. But that didn't stop her from making a mark. She left school and jumped into the real world where her life took unexpected turns. From 1979 to 1981, Diana lived at Kern Court in Chelsea, London. She wasn't one to sit idle. She worked several jobs, each one showing her love for children. She became a nanny, worked at a preschool, and even did some babysitting. At one point, she took a cooking course and juggled a few other low-paying jobs, including cleaning for her sister Sarah. A skiing accident forced her to take a break from work, but she bounced back, continuing to care for children as a nursery assistant. For her 18th birthday, her mother bought her a flat at Kern Court, where she lived with 3 friends. Her life seemed normal, but that was about to change in a big way. Diana first met Prince Charles in 1977, but at that time he wasn't interested in her. He was dating her older sister, Sarah. Nobody could have guessed that she would end up becoming the future Princess of Wales. Their paths kept crossing, and in the summer of 1980, something shifted. Charles suddenly started paying attention to Diana after seeing her at a house party. He was grieving the loss of his great-uncle, Lord Mountbatten, and Diana offered him words of comfort. That simple conversation sparked something, and Charles began pursuing her despite the 13-year age gap between them. But was it really love or just royal duty calling? Charles invited Diana to Balmoral for a summer holiday with his friends, and she was thrilled. Things moved quickly, and after meeting only about 13 times, Charles proposed on February 3, 1981. However, some say he only did it because his father, Prince Philip, pressured him. Charles didn't seem too sure about marriage, but he went ahead with it anyway. When asked by reporters if they were in love, Diana confidently said yes, while Charles famously replied, "Whatever in love means." That response raised eyebrows, but the wedding went forward. On July 29, 1981, they married in front of thousands at St. Paul's Cathedral, while an estimated 750 million people watched from their televisions. But was this truly a fairy tale, or was it doomed from the start? Even before the wedding, red flags were everywhere. Diana was seen crying at Heathrow Airport when Charles left for a trip to Australia. But it wasn't just because she would miss him. She had just found out he was still in contact with Camilla Parker Bowles, his longtime love. Despite her concerns, the royal wedding happened, and Diana officially became the Princess of Wales. However, Charles had never let go of his feelings for Camilla, and that was going to be a major issue. He had married Diana because she was the perfect fit for the royal family, not necessarily because he was in love. Was Diana just a means to an end, chosen to provide heirs to the throne? From the moment she became a royal, Diana's life was no longer her own. Every move she made was watched by the press, every smile analyzed, every tear captured by cameras. The pressure of being the perfect princess weighed heavily on her. She had married into a family that had rules for everything, yet she was expected to follow along without question. The fairy tale image was cracking, and it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. Did Diana realize too late that she had walked into a world she could never truly belong to? Was Ashton Kutcher truly guilty, or is there something much bigger at play? Possibly a cover-up that no one saw coming? Could Hollywood's golden boy have been framed, or has the truth finally come to light after all these years? The case has been reopened, but the real question is, who's pulling the strings behind the scenes? Tell us what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.